Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alright, we'll get started here where we left off, and now we're going to go into Kitab al-Sawm. Al-Sawm, which is of course one of the 5 pillars of Islam. The word itself, what it means linguistically is imsak, or holding back from something, refraining to do something. And so that is why it is mentioned in the Quran from Maryam alayhi salam, and that she says, "Inni nadartu lir-Rahmani sawma," that I made nadhr to ar-Rahman a sawm. And so what she meant there was by fasting from speaking to people. So this was stopping herself from speaking to and interacting with people. And so what it means, that's what it means linguistically. What it means in the Sharia is imsak means staying away from anything that would break the fast, ala wajhin makhsus ma'an niyyah, in a specific way with the niyyah beforehand. And so this is the technical definition. Of course, this is obligatory because of the ayat where Allah says, "Kutiba alaykumus siyam." And to the rest of that, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ شَهْرَ مِنْكُمْ فَلْيَصُمْ. And so the fasting, of course, is fard ayn, and originally it was something that people were given the choice to, and it was originally fasting was for Yawm al-Ashura, and that was obligatory, and then that got abrogated and then made for Ramadan. All right, so the first things that we're going to go into is we're going to go to the conditions for the obligation of fasting. And before we go into this, though, the time for fasting, when does it come in? That comes in when Sha'ban finishes out 30 days, and then the day after that, or we see the hilal for Ramadan, which is the first sliver of the new moon, on the 30th of Sha'ban. Like, so if we say it's on the night of the 30th of Sha'ban, then we know we're going to fast. And if not, then we finish out Sha'ban as 30, which is the month right before Ramadan. And that's from the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Summu li ru'yatihi," so fast for seeing it, wa aftiru li ru'yatihi, and also make then break your fast and for Eid al-Fitr when you see it, meaning the next hilal. فإن غم عليكم فأكملوا عدة شعبان 30 يوما. And if it's cloudy and you're not able to see it, or for whatever reason you're not able to see the moon, then finish out Sha'ban as 30 days. Then finish the number of Sha'ban as 30 days. All right. And now he says here, he's going to go into that. He says, وَشَرَائِطُ وُجُوبِ الصِّيَامِ ثَلَاثَةُ أَشْيَاء. And the conditions for fasting are, in some cases it says 3 things, and in other them it would say, in other manuscripts it would say 4. So شَرَائِطُ الْوُجُوبِ الصِّيَامِ أَرْبَعَةُ أَشْيَاء. We'll go with this. Al-Islam, which is first that the person needs to be Muslim. Wal-Bulugh, the person coming of age. Wal-Aqlu, meaning that they're sane. Wal-Qudratu ala sawm, and also the ability to fast. In some of the manuscripts they don't add this last one, which is the ability to fast. And note on Islam, for the issue of Islam, this is of course meaning that if a person was to become a Muslim, do they have to make up any of the previous fasting? No, they don't have to make up any of the previous fasting. But of course, the person who dies and was never a Muslim, will he be punished for not fasting? Yes, he would be punished for not fasting. That's according to the Shafi'i method. As far as the coming of age, then just like Salah, then we're supposed to order the kids to pray when they are 7 years old, and then teach them to pray at 7 and order them to pray, and then at 10, then they would be reprimanded and beaten disciplinarily for leaving it off. So the same thing goes for fasting. As long as there's not going to be any actual harm that's going to come into to them, then at this point they also need to be taught and be told to fast. But is it obligatory on them, meaning it's fard for them personally? No. Is it fard on the the parents to tell them to fast and to make sure that they fast? Yes, it would be obligatory on the parents to tell them to do this, because this is a part of the deen. This is just like salat. They would tell them to fast at 7. This is 7 years old of the hilal, which is the lunar years. And then at 10, they would have to fast. Even if they're not baligh yet, they still have to fast. Meaning that they're going to be told to, and they must fast. Of course, if they don't fast, do they have to make it up? Not necessarily, because it's not obligatory yet for them, but it's obligatory for us to make sure that they do it. And by obligatory, we mean they're not going to hold a sin on the Day of Judgment for not fasting. Although, at the same time, the person should fast. All right. And the ability to fast. This is, of course, because Allah does not لَا يُكَلِّفُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. That Allah won't burden a soul with more than what He can bear. And also, we'll talk about the people that do break the fast, what is upon them in the coming times. But basically, if there's a hardship on this person for fasting, that would be a serious hardship, or that this person is sick and whatnot, or this person needs medication, and if he doesn't take his medication on these specific times, then he's going to have some type of sickness that comes. Then all of this falls into the lack of ability to fast. And in this case, they would pay the fidyah. All right, and we'll talk about that coming up. The next of them, so these are the fasting. And then the next thing is going to go into is وَفَرَائِضُ الصَّوْمِ أَرْبَعَةُ أَشْيَاء. Now, the conditions for the fasting itself are the fara'id, which are the obligatory parts, like the arkan of fasting. Here, he says, are 4 things. The first of them, he says, an-niyah, which is intention. Of course, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And what's the only thing that stops someone from fasting from starving? What's the only difference between this person starving and this person from fasting? Or this person forgetting to eat? There's only one difference, and that's the niyyah. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said that whoever doesn't مَنْ لَمْ يُبَيِّتِ النِّيَّةِ, whoever doesn't have the intention or like the niyyah to fast قَبْلَ الْفَجْرِ فَلَا صَوْمَ لَهُ, that he doesn't have this intention to fast before Fajr, then there's no Sawm for him. There's no fasting for him, meaning it doesn't count. And so if he wants to get his reward, then he needs to have the intention for him to fast, and this would be sometime before Fajr. All right, so that's the niyyah, and that's the time for it as well. The time for niyyah is that it needs to be in the night beforehand. And normally, when we have niyyah, we'd say that this is the pillar. The pillar needs to be accompanying the first part of the action. But when it comes to fasting, how can we do that? Like realistically, this doesn't work. And if you don't do this, then your fast is not valid. That'd be extremely hard to oblige the people to do, and because of this, the Sharia allows us to do this sometime within the night. And the Shafi'is, they understand it needs to be sometime within the night, from the Maghrib before till the time of Fajr. They need to have had that intention of fasting. And if the Fajr before, from the Maghrib of the night before till Fajr, they need to have intended fasting. And if they don't intend, then if it's Ramadan, they still have to fast that day. And then they have to make that up because they were missing a part of that. Just like if someone was praying and then they realized that they were missing a rukn, they have to redo the prayer. And of course, since the time of fasting encompasses the whole day, then in this case, if someone was to miss their niyyah and they forgot to do it the night before, then they still have to fast, because Ramadan must be fasted in. You can't break your fast just because your fast is invalid. Doesn't mean you can break it now. Now you still have to do it because of the hurma, or like the sanctity of Ramadan, but you'd have to make it up because it was missing something that was vital to it. And so that's the first, which is the intention and niyyah. This is the first one, and it needs to be somewhere before Fajr. A lot of times just as like a rule of thumb, I normally do this as soon as I know. I just have the intention somewhere in my heart that I'm going to fast tomorrow for Ramadan. and all the intention is, it's just an intention within your heart. And so a lot of times, anytime I break the fast, I'll remember I'm fasting tomorrow. And so I'll just have that. And all you have to have is just a moment of remembrance of this, and that counts. All right. The next of them is, he says, وَالْإِمْسَاكُ عَنِ الْأَكْلِ وَالشُّرْبِ وَالْجِمَاعِ وَتَعَمُّدِ الْقَيْءِ. And then abstaining from, and then he says all the rest of these things: eating, drinking, intercourse, and inducing vomiting. And if he would have said abstaining from whatever breaks the fast, it would have been easier. It would have been faster for him to say this. But and then it would just be two. It would just be two pillars: intention and abstaining from al-mufattirat, which are all the things that break the fast. But here he kind of listed out some of the things that do break the fast. So abstaining from 1, eating, and then 2, drinking, and then also intercourse, and like that is sexual gratification, and inducing vomiting. Inducing vomiting also is something that would break the fast, and this is from a couple different ways that would make it improper. One of them is inducing fast has or inducing vomiting has a hadith that talks about this matter, which is that whoever is overcome by fasting, whoever is overcome by vomiting, then they should finish their fast. And whoever tries and makes themselves fast, then he should make up the day. And if he has to make up the day, that means that day was batil. The fast of that day was batil, meaning that it was not valid. And he's going to come, we'll talk about this just a little bit as well. So he says these are the obligatory parts of fasting. And now he's going to talk about what breaks the fast. All right. And so he says here, وَالَّذِي يُفْطِرُ الصَّائِمُ عَشْرَةُ أَشْيَاء يُفْطِرُ بِهِ الصَّائِمُ عَشْرَةُ أَشْيَاء. So he says that which breaks a person's fast, the fasting person's fast, is 10 things. And the first of them, he says, مَا وَصَلَ عَمْدًا إِلَى الْجَوْفِ وَالرَّأْسِ. So whatever enters intentionally to the bodily cavity. When he says jawf, what he means is a bodily cavity. That's a normal opening for a body cavity, such as the mouth. That's a bodily cavity, and what is meant specifically here is anything passed down the throat, past the letter where you would say kha, and someone that would say or ha. So when it goes past this point and goes down into the throat, at this point it breaks the fast. Something that anything that enters intentionally that body cavity, or any of the other body cavities as well, according to the view that he says, such as the anus or the urethral cavity, or similar to this is the nose, or similar to this would also be the ear, according to them. All right, so this is whatever enters into a bodily cavity, and that's how he said it here. And that which enters into the body cavity, there's different views within the Shafi'i madhab about this, and the two views that are out there is anything that enters into any body cavity, regardless of whether this body cavity receives nutrition from it normally, whether it's a place of ghidha or it doesn't. And the other view is it needs to be a bodily cavity that receives nutrition from it, meaning that meaning that they eat from this body cavity. And so this other view, which is the view that the fatwa is upon, would allow if something was to go into one of the urinary pathway or the other way, or the back passageway, if something were to enter, it doesn't necessarily break because it's not somewhere that would receive nutrition. And similar to this is the ears. The ears normally don't receive nutrition, although some of them they would say this breaks the fast. In the Shafi'i madhab, they would say that there's two groups. One, they say it would break the fast, and the other, they say it wouldn't. And the fatwa is upon is upon that it would not break the fast. Like if someone had eardrops or something went inside the ear and went down, would this break the fast? On the view of the author here, it would, but the view that is stronger, Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, that Sheikh Muhammad Salim Buhaydi, that he strengthened, is that it would not break the fast. All right. And so also the nose way, though, this way it goes down to the esophagus and whatnot, and so this would break the fast. So if someone was to sniff something into their nose, all the way down until it went into the pathway, khalas, the person broke their fast. He says whatever intentionally enters a bodily cavity. Also note intentionally is another key point. It needs to be intentional. If it's something that is accidental, say somebody they weren't thinking and they ate, like they didn't think that they were fasting for whatever reason, they just forgot, and so they were drinking and eating. Although you could say it's intentional that they were doing the action, they didn't realize that they were fasting. They weren't intentionally breaking their fast in this. And so in this case, they didn't do this knowing that they were fasting, so this is forgiven. And this comes from the hadith that's in the Sahihain. That it's in Bukhari and Muslim. Man nasiya wa huwa sa'im fa akala aw sharib. Whoever forgot while he was fasting, and so he ate or drank, فَلْيُتِمَّ صَوْمَهُ, then he should finish his fast. فَإِنَّمَا أَطْعَمَهُ اللَّهُ وَسَقَاهُ. And so because Allah has been the one who has fed him and also given him drink. And so this is for a person who actually forgot, then it would be forgiven for him, as opposed to someone who knew that he was fasting, knew it was Ramadan, and he starts eating. All right. There's also some other things that will break people's fast in this matter. Inshallah, I wrote down a bunch of the things. Inshallah, at the end of the class, I'll go through one by one some of these things that will break the fast, that are like kind of new issues. All right. And so here he also mentions number 2 is the head. And so this is the things that would break the fast. If something enters the head, and this is kind of the view. What he means by here, the head, ruts, is he would think that by bringing something into the nasal cavity, it goes into the head. And Allahu a'lam. The next of the things here that he goes into is, he says, وَالْحُقْنَ فِي أَحَدِ السَّبِيلَيْنِ, a rectal or a urethral suppository. The number 2 thing that he said was the head, and what he meant by the head is if something is going to go into the nasal passage, and occasionally they would think that also the eardrops, if it's entering into the eardrops, it would break the fast. As I mentioned, the stronger opinion is that it wouldn't break the fast. That's on the second view of the madhab. There's 2 main views, and the other view would say it wouldn't break it. The third one, the third issue here, which he says a rectal or urethral suppository, then this enters into a body cavity. And so upon the view that doesn't necessitate that this body cavity takes nutrition, or gets nutrition from this area, then this would break the opinion. That's the opinion that the author is upon. And the other view is that it needs to be from something that gets nutrition, and so this would not break the fast. And this is what if you were to ask my sheikh about the view of what he would give a fatwa on, that it would not break. Also, number 4 here, he says, after the hukna, and hukna, a lot of times you'll find it in this day and age, this means something that is a shot, but there what they meant is a suppository. All right, he says wal-qay'u, which is wal-qay'u amdan, which is intentional vomiting, as opposed to that which overcame somebody. But if somebody did end up vomiting, then they can't swallow any of the vomit that comes out, meaning that if they have something in their mouth, they must spit it out and wash out their mouth and spit it out. They cannot swallow any of it, because that would break the fast if they intentionally swallowed a part while they had the ability to get rid of it. That's what's meant by intentional vomiting. The next is intentional intercourse. And so intercourse here, what he means by intentional is that the person knew it was Ramadan, or he knew that it was the time for Ramadan. Say he didn't realize Fajr had come in yet, but he knew it was Ramadan. At this point, if he knows it's Ramadan, he knows what he's doing, and he knows that Fajr could come in, but he's still doing it, then this would break his fast, because he's doing the action intentionally while knowing that Ramadan is around. But if he was, for whatever reason, say he woke up and forgot it was Ramadan during the day, and then he had intercourse, then in this case, if he forgot, then at this point he would not be held liable for breaking the fasting. He would finish off his fast just as if he ate unintentionally. And that's what is meant here. It's similar to the eating. The eating breaks the fast also unintentionally. Doing intercourse, meaning that he didn't realize it was Ramadan while he was doing it. All right. The next of them is, let's see here, ejaculation from touching. So he says here, وَالْإِنْزَالُ عَنْ مُبَاشَرَةٍ. All right, وَالْوَطُّ عَمْدًا فِي الْفَرْجِ, that's what we mentioned for intercourse, and that's intentional intercourse, فِي الْفَرْجِ, meaning in the private area. Alright, and وَالْإِنْزَالُ عَنْ مُبَاشَرَةٍ, and inzal is ejaculation from touching, meaning that he caused this ejaculation by his actions and by some type of movement. So if he caused ejaculation by movement of himself, of touching that area or around it, or anything that was and that was a movement that was causing this, then this would count as him breaking his fast. If he were to have a wet dream, like he wasn't awake, he had a wet dream, then this doesn't break his fast. Or the other example that they will give, where he says an mubashara, from touching, is if he wasn't touching. Say the person, he just looked at his wife, and all of a sudden he broke the major impurity. So now he needs to go make ghusl. He had inzal or ejaculation just from looking, without any movements, without anything else, just from this. That at this point, his fast is still valid, and he didn't break it, and just from looking. And this is rare, but what we're looking at here is that the ejaculation needs to come from an action or some type of touching from between him and someone else, or even within himself. It needs to be from some type of movement. The next of them is, he says here, wal-haidu, and menstruation. This one would also break the fast. So for a woman, if she's fast, or if she's menstruating, then as soon as any menses come, her fast is automatically broken. And even if there's a few seconds left in the fast, it's broken, and she has to make it up. She still gets the reward for whatever she was fasting for that time, and yes, she had to fast, but as soon as it comes, it broke the fast. And also, she can't start a fast knowing that she's still menstruating. If she thinks that she already stopped menstruating, then she can have the intention, or she thinks she will stop before Fajr, then she can have the intention to fast the next day. And if nothing comes and it really did stop, then at this point her fast is valid. But if it didn't stop, then it would be clear that even if it was for a moment or two after Fajr, then it would become clear that the fast needs to be made up, and she broke it. Of course, it's outside of her control, but at the same time, she's not allowed to intend fasting for this time. To try to intend fasting as an act of worship, this is haram. So then the next like it is one nifas. Nifas also, which is postpartum bleeding, takes the same ruling as haid in most things. The next of them is wal junun, which is insanity. The person who's insane, then this person, he's not ahlun lit-taklif. Like, he's not a person who is suitable for being held responsible for anything. And also ridda breaks the fast as well, because this person no longer has their intention is totally broken at this point. Even if they were to come back, that still broke the fast for that moment that they had the wrong intention, then it's not going to be acceptable, because this takes of the important parts of fasting is the intention that goes through. And so if they're no longer able to worship because they're outside of Islam, then their day will not be accepted. All right. And we seek Allah's refuge from that. There was a question here about injections or IV drops. They do not break the fast on either one of the views. So injections, it's not in a bodily cavity. And so, regardless of whether or not the injection gives someone fuel or hydration, or IV drops, whether or not it gives somebody hydration, or if somebody has one of the injection that's in like their wrist and whatnot, and they just put in whatever their meds are into that does not break the fast. It does not break the fast. It's not considered eating or drinking, and it's not into a bodily cavity. Yes, a natural bodily cavity. All right. The next of them that he mentions, he says, وَيُسْتَحَبُّ فِي الصَّوْمِ ثَلَاثَةُ أَشْيَاء. He says it's sunnah, and it's good, preferred to do three things for the fast. Of course, there's much more than this, but these are three that he mentions. And he says, the first of them, تَعْجِيلُ الْفِطْرِ, which is hurrying to break the fast. And so hurrying to break the fast is sunnah for somebody to do, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا تزال أمتي بخير ما عجلوا الفطرة. And so in another narration, وأخروا السحور. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, my ummah will continue to be in good as long as they hurry to break the fast, meaning after the time they know that they should break the fast, and وأخروا السحور, and also that they delay suhoor. And that's the next thing he's going to say, delaying suhoor, with ta'khir al-suhoor, which is, suhoor is that meal that somebody takes before they fast, so that they can have some type of strength to go through their fasting. The smallest amount of suhoor is just a sip of water. And of course, a little, like some dates and whatnot, this is good. Or if someone needs a meal beforehand so that they can get through the day, that's fine. As far as breaking the fast, the sunnah when it comes to breaking the fast is for someone to break the fast with rutab, which are fresh dates. And if they don't have rutab, then with, like in this, an odd number of them. And if they don't have this, then with dried dates, which are tamar. Tamar is dried dates. And then if they can't have this, then with water. And if they had some other type of fruits or anything else, this is all good. It all accomplishes the purpose of breaking the fast. And note, if somebody is going to break the fast, then it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to take their whole meal right before Maghrib and consistently miss Maghrib and Jama'ah. Rather, it's better that they would take a little bit of something and then pray Maghrib in congregation, and then after this they can go eat what they wish after that, and then have a little bit of something. Also note the food between the teeth while someone is praying. If they swallow any of this food, like the dates, this is the issue people fall into. If they swallow the dates between their teeth while they're praying, it breaks the salah, because that would break the fast. If they were to do this in the morning, after fast came in, they swallow some of the dates from sahur, it breaks the fast. Also, it would break the prayer if they were in prayer and they were swallowing this. And just like eating a piece of candy, all right, or sucking on a piece of candy. All right, he says, وَتَرْكُ الْهُجْرِ مِنَ الْكَلَامِ. And then the third of these things that's preferred to do for the fast is leaving off al-hujr, which is bad speech, مِنَ الْكَلَامِ, like leaving off bad speech. That's not necessary. And so I would say this is always obligatory. Yeah, it's always obligatory, but specifically for the sake of someone fasting, it's even more emphasized. And so since it's more emphasized, that extra emphasis comes from here, and that's why he says it's mustahab. And occasionally you'll find areas in the words of the ulama where they say yustahab, and what they mean is in relationship to this thing, even though it's obligatory in other aspects to leave it off. Yeah, this is haram normally, but in relationship to fasting, it's mustahab to leave it off on top of the fact that it's already obligatory normally. All right. He mentions وَيَحْرُمُ الصِّيَامُ خَمْسَةِ أَيَّامٍ. He says it's haram for somebody to fast 5 days, and if it's haram for someone to fast, and then of course if they were to do it, their fast isn't valid. And like that, if we were to say that there is makruh fasting, that it's makruh for someone to fast somewhere, this, that, or the other, then that which is makruh also is not valid. because it's not an act of worship. How can you seek closeness to Allah with something that ultimately isn't even prescribed, and it's recommended not to do it? So how can you seek closeness to Allah with that? So he says there's 5 days that it's haram for someone to fast, which is al-Eidan, the 2 Eids. So the day of Eids, these are days of eating and drinking. And also in another hadith, it comes with the 3 days of Tashriq as well, because these are days of eating and drinking. And he says here, وَأَيَّامُ التَّشْرِيقِ الثَّلَاثَةِ. And so then the 3 days of Tashriq, these are the 3 days after Eid al-Akbar, Eid al-Adha. So those 3 days afterwards, also it's impermissible for someone to fast on these 3 days. And then he says, وَيُكْرَهُ صَوْمُ يَوْمِ الشَّكِّ إِلَّا أَن يُوَافِقَ عَادَةً لَهُ. And it's makruh for someone to fast the day of shak. He says makruh. And the day of doubt is that day, the day that would be the 30th of Sha'ban. People are thinking it's either the 30th of Sha'ban or it's Ramadan. We don't know. And no one, people were talking about seeing the moon, but no one saw it yet, and it's just been talk. So someone says, I want to fast this out of precaution. No, it's not allowed. He says here, it's makruh. And the mu'tamid of the madhab is that it is haram. It's haram to fast. Either way, on either one of the views, whether you say it's makruh or haram, it's still not valid. The fasting is not valid. And for someone to intentionally fast in spite of this, it would be haram for them to intend that. Alright? Just like it would be haram for somebody to intend to pray salah while they're not in a state of wudu. Alright? Or during the times that it's not allowed to pray, such as like after Asr or after Fajr and whatnot, in those prohibited times. He says here, unless he has a normal routine that falls on that day. And this for إِلَّا يُوَافِقَ عَادَةً لَهُ. If someone fasts Mondays and Thursdays, he's always doing this. Then in this case, all of a sudden this day falls on the Thursday. Khalas. He's fasting it not because it's Yom HaShak, he's fasting it because it's normally Mondays and Thursdays. Or if he normally fasts 3 days every single month and he needs to get in his last of the 3rd day of the month, so he's going to fast it this day, okay, no problem. Because he's not fasting it out of precaution from that. And in this case, it's allowed for him. Alright. The next of the things that he'll go into is he's going to talk about the things that would be required of someone if they made intentional intercourse during Ramadan. He says, وَمَنْ وَطِئَ فِي نَهَارِ رَمَضَانَ عَامِدًا فِي الْفَرْجِ فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ وَالْكَفَّارَةُ. Alright, he says, whoever has intercourse during the day of Ramadan, intentionally, he says fil farj, meaning with penetration of the sexual orifice, then فَعَلَيْهِ الْقَضَاءُ وَالْكَفَّارَةُ. Then he has to make up the day, which is qada, and the kaffara. And then he'll go into what this is. So the first thing, that this intercourse, like the thing that would necessitate the kaffara specifically, it's going to be during the day of Ramadan for someone who's obliged to fast. And there's no rukhsa for him to break his fast. As opposed to someone who is going on a journey where he's allowed to break his fast, and he breaks his fast with this. He's allowed to break his fast anyways. So in this case, it wouldn't count. Alright, and then he says during the day of Ramadan, and so if someone was making up a fast of Ramadan, but it's not during the day of Ramadan, and he has intercourse and breaks that fast that was obligatory for him that he's making up for Ramadan, it doesn't count. It needs to be during the actual Ramadan. There's a special prohibition for the days of Ramadan. Intentionally, so as I mentioned before, if someone accidentally, and they woke up and they didn't realize they were fasting, and then they had intercourse, does this count? No. Or if they thought they thought they weren't, say they forgot their niyyah, They forgot their niyyah and they thought that, oh, okay, since I forgot my niyyah, my fast isn't going to be valid, so I might as well just break my fast all the way because of this. It's haram for them to do, but there's no kafara. Alright? Or if they already broke their fast previously, then it's haram for them to do, but there's no kafara. And that's what intentionally means. And then he says with penetration, so this means that there's actual penetration that would necessitate ghusl, or necessitate the head if it was with someone who was haram, meaning that the head of the male piece entered into the female to a point where the head was no longer seen. And so this is what would actually necessitate the kafara. If it was something less than this, say it was the man and the woman, they were making out, and then he ejaculated. All right. So in this case, yes, this is haram for him, and yes, he broke the fast. But does he have the kafara on him? No, he doesn't have the kafara on him because it wasn't penetration. And so the same thing if there was masturbation, there's no kafara on the person. Yes, it is a sin and it's a major sin, and the person needs to make tawbah and he needs to make up the days, but it doesn't necessitate the kafara. All right. And and this is, what is the kafara? And he says, وَهِيَ عِتْقُ رَقَبَةٍ مُؤْمِنَةٍ. It's freeing a believing slave. فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ فَصِيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ. Then if you can't find a slave to free, then it'd be 2 months of fasting without any breaks. And if you can't find one, meaning like a free believing slave, which in our day and age we don't have these, and so in this case he would fast 2 months without any breaks. شهرين متتابعين, meaning without any breaks. And if he stops somewhere in the middle of it, then he's got to go back and finish it all the way as 2 months consecutively, and so he would have to restart it. Also, and فإن لم يستطع, and if he's not able to, فطعام 60 مسكينة لكل مسكين مد. And if he's not able, then he needs to feed 60 poor people, 1 mud of the local staple food for each of these people. The inability here, it could be inability such as like this person, like physically he can't handle 2 months at a time. Physically it's going to be too much for him. Or it could also be that he has too much shahwa, that he's going to fall into it again. And in this case, if someone had like a ton of shahwa, then this is also like he can't control himself for 2 months like this. This would be too hard for him. Then he could also go to this other side. He could go to the feeding of the poor people. Say he doesn't have the money to do this, it becomes a debt in his account that he needs to do. And he needs to pay it off eventually, either this way or that way. Meaning if he ever is able to to fast it, then he needs to fast it. And if he can't do the 2 months at a time. If he can't do the 2 months at a time, then he would do the 1 mud, or he'd do 60, feed 60 poor people, 1 mud each. All right. Note that this is for the man in the Shafi'i madhab, not for the woman. Of course, if the woman was to allow her husband to have intercourse with her, this is haram for her to allow him to do this, and it's a kabira, and she is supposed to resist and not allow him to do this. If it's obligatory for them to fast, she's not allowed to have this with him. But in the Shafi'i madhab, they would not obligate the kafara on her, because of the hadith that came. The Prophet ﷺ, he didn't say anything about the woman, he only said it about the man. Of course, there's a big area of difference in this, but in the Shafi'i madhab, the woman does not need to. If she were to break the fast with intercourse, then while this is a major sin, there's no kafara. And he says, وَمَنْ مَاتَ وَعَلَيْهِ صِيَامٌ وَمَنْ مَاتَ وَعَلَيْهِ صِيَامٌ مِنْ رَمَضَانَ أُطْعِمَ عَنْهُ لِكُلِّ يَوْمٍ مُدٌّ. And whoever dies and he has fasting upon him that he needs to make up, then if he had days that were left over that he never made up yet, and he says here from Ramadan, even if it was from other than Ramadan, there's no difference between Ramadan or that there was say he had a kafara that he had to do, or he had some nadhr that he made. So in this case, whatever the case is for his fasting, or say it was from any of the kafarat and whatnot, then he would have to. He says here, "Uṭ'ima anhu likulli yawmin mud," and so then someone would be fed. Each day of fasting is counted for with 1 mud given on his behalf. So his family would they would give that for each day. They would give a mud of ta'am on his behalf. And this is the view that Imam Shafi'i held as the later of his two views. The previous view that he held in his old madhab, al-Qarīb, madhab al-Qarīb, he held that the person could fast on his behalf, like the person's family could fast on his behalf. And this is the mu'tamid that the scholars they hold on to from that no, the family can actually fast on behalf of him. And so this comes because of the hadith within this matter, which is Dainullahi ahaqqu an yuqda. And then when someone was asking about this, that the Prophet ﷺ, he said that if someone had if your mother had a debt, wouldn't you pay it? And the lady said, yes, I would pay it. He said, فَدَيْنُ اللَّهِ حَقٌّ أَنْ يُقْضَى. Then the debt of Allah that is upon this person is the most important, would be even more rightful for it to be paid off, meaning that she would fast on behalf of her mother, or go on Hajj or Umrah, as it comes in other hadith. And Imam Shafi'i, the reason he didn't say this was because he was wondering about the hadith at the end. He was wondering about the sihha, the hadith that came to him, it wasn't sahih. And so that is of the reasons why he didn't necessarily hold on to that. And then the hadith that comes, man mata wa alayhi siyamun sama anhu waliyuhu. And this is a hadith that comes in Bukhari. And so, but the way it came to Imam Shafi'i was that it wasn't necessarily sahih, when it reached him. And you'll find this is of the reasons that some of the a'imma, occasionally they would have some views that seems to go against some of the hadith that are out there. And from the reasons from this, that Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, that he brought up in his book Raf'a al-Malam an A'immat al-A'lam, he brings up of the issues is that not every single imam had all of the hadith under his nose, and if he did, he might have forgotten about some of it. But in reality, no one ever had the hadith, every single hadith, to be known to them with every single wording of it. No imam ever had this. And occasionally it would reach the imam, but it wouldn't reach him in a way where it's a hujjah, meaning it reached him with a chain that was not strong, and he never saw a strong chain, and it was out there, but he never got it. So it's not binding upon him. But if it did come to him in this way, then he would have taken it. And that's why in some cases you have Imam Shafi'i, he'll say that إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيث فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. Like he will basically say, in this particular issue, if the hadith is sahih, then this is what I hold on to this position. But if it's not sahih, which means he didn't see it as sahih yet, then he couldn't hold on to this position because it wasn't an evidence that went over qiyas in that area. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And so the Muṣṭafā Bughā, meaning that which is the fatwa would go, is that the people would fast on the behalf of their family member that still had fasting upon them. And it's good that the family member usually lets people know around them how many days of fasting there was. And if they're wondering about it, then you can just be safe and fast extra on them. Alright. Alright, the next thing he goes into, he's going to talk about some of the other cases where someone's not able to fast. He says, وَالشَّيْخُ إِنْ أَعْجَزَ عَنِ الصَّوْمِ يُفْطِرُ وَيُطْعِمُ عَنْ كُلِّ يَوْمٍ مُدًّا. And he says, as for the sheikh is, it means old person, like elderly person. So in this case, or harim means like really old. But the sheikh, the one who is, like linguistically mean like someone who went over 40 years old. He'd be a sheikh. And the person who's just not able to, or chronically ill. The chronically ill person falls under the same category, that you don't hope for him to get any better. It's been a downhill battle, and his health is bad and whatnot. Then in this case, and ajiz on his sawm, if he's not able to fast, then he yuftiru, he breaks the fast. If it's going to cause harm for him, he has to break the fast. And وَيُطْعِمُ عَنْ كُلِّ يَوْمٍ مُدَّةً, and then he would feed for each day that he broke the fast 1 mud. He would feed one person a mud for each day that he broke that fast. So he'd keep this in. They would keep this. How many days did I break? Is this Ramadan? Is it going to be 30 or is it going to be 29 or 30 days? And for each one of these, it's going to be a mud that he feeds out for that. And so the next, in this issue, similarly to this, there's also the next issue, which is al-hamil wal-murdi'. And this next issue, let's see here. The next issue is for the pregnant woman and the one who is breastfeeding. And the pregnant woman and the one who's breastfeeding, these have specific rulings, but we will go. I'm going to talk about the person who's sick, just so we understand their ruling, and then we'll go back to the pregnant woman and the breastfeeding woman. He says, وَالْمُرِيدُ وَالْمَرِيدُ وَالْمُسَافِرُ سَفْرًا طَوِيلًا يُفْطِرَانِ وَيَقْضِيَانِ. The person that is sick, marid, is a sickness that is going to create more hardship for him to fast during it. And وَالْمُسَافِرُ, the one who's traveling a long distance, سَفْرًا طَوِيلًا, the distance that he can shorten his salah in, which is 53 miles and 80 kilometers or 81 kilometers, then he can break the fast, and then if so, they make it up. So that's the ruling for the marid. The marid is that person that they're sick, and so they can make up the fast. They don't have any, there's no fidya that they need to pay or anything else, such as what is for the elderly person. He's not able to make it up in the first place. And so in this case, وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And so the people who are able to do it, then they need to pay. The people that, if they were to do it, they would be very hard on them, or they're not able to do it. Then they would pay فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. And which is the 1 day of feeding one person. Alright, now the hamil and the murdi', I'll come back to that. He says, إِذَا خَافَتَا عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمَا أَفْتَرَتَا وَعَلَيْهِمَا الْقَضَاءُ. He says, if the pregnant and the breastfeeding woman, if they fear for their own health, then they break the fast and make it up later. Simple. They are just like a sick person. So if the woman, she fears that if I don't eat, I'm going to become very, very sick, and I'm not going to be able to make it. And forget about the kid. She herself, she's worried about herself. Maybe she's not worried about the kid. Maybe she's worried about the kid too. No, but it definitely is worried about herself. Then she breaks the fast and she makes it up. Nothing else is upon her other than this. All right. And so this is that if they fear for themselves. Now, if they don't fear for themselves, but they fear for the kid, then in this case, he says, وَإِنْ خَافَتَا عَلَى أَوْلَادِهِمَا فَقَط. Like I say only. Like if they fear for their kids only. I'm going to add this only here just because people get confused. If they fear for their children's well-being only, then in this case, أَفْتَرَتَا, then they must break the fast. وَعَلَيْهِمَا الْقَضَاءُ وَالْكَفَّارَةُ عَنْ كُلِّ يَوْمٍ مُدٍّ. And then upon them is the qada, making it up, and also the kaffara here, which you could also call it the fidya. Not necessarily, it's not the same kaffara that is for the person who had intercourse. No, this is the fidya that the person would make, which is what she says here, an kulli yawmin mud, that he would give out, or she would give out for every single day 1 mud of ta'am, of food. And then he says here, وَهُوَ رِطْرٌ وَثُلُثٌ بِالْعِرَاقِ. And this would be 1 1/3 of the Iraqi rital. As I put down here, 3.2 cups, 750 milliliters. This is from the mud that is with the Senate from Medina. Now the Senate back to the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All right, and the 1 1/3 Iraqi rital. This is a weight measurement. Some of them said this is around like 600 grams. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Or some of them they said 510. Some of them they say like this is 510 grams. But really, if it's a volumetric measurement, mud is a volumetric measurement, and this is a weight, then it's always going to depend on the type of food that we're using. The next thing, so this, just to make sure everyone understands, for the pregnant woman or the breastfeeding woman, if she fears for herself, regardless of whether she fears for her kids or she doesn't fear for her kids, there's no fidya on her. She just makes up the day. And for the pregnant breastfeeding woman that fears for her kids and she doesn't fear for herself, she's the only one that will have to make up, she'll have to pay the fidya on this. And I hope this is clear. The next section that we'll go into here is al-i'tikaf, and they bring this at the end here because this is of the matters that is connected with Ramadan. One second. Ayoub, why are you banging on the door? Do not bang on the door. Out. All right. So I'tikaf is one of the things that is important during the time of Ramadan for someone to do, and it's sunnah all the time, regardless of whether it's Ramadan or not. And especially in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, then this is a more emphasized sunnah. The last 10 nights of Ramadan, then this is a emphasized sunnah, so that someone can try to get Laylatul Qadr while they're in a state of i'tikaf. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to make i'tikaf throughout the month of Ramadan, and towards the end of his life, then he would do it in the last 10 nights, because this is what he received wahi, that the Laylatul Qadr would be in the last 10 nights. The linguistic meaning of i'tikaf means al-lubth wal-habs, which is that someone remains in a certain place, or they are like locking themselves up in a certain place. And that's the meaning of i'tikaf, like that they stay in this way. And what it means, like shar'an, what it means technically is staying in the masjid from a person who's able with intention. So this just intentional staying in the masjid, automatically this is automatically a type of worship, and this is a beautiful type of worship. So going to the masjid early, you can intend by the time that you're being there that you're staying in the masjid, and you want to have this intention, and this is going to be counted for you as i'tikaf. And this is for any masjid here. And the author here, he says wal-i'tikafu sunnah mustahabba, and so kind of doubling up that it's very important sunnah. So he says al-i'tikafu sunnatun mustahabba, meaning that it's a love sunnah, it's very important, and it's extra important during Ramadan, mu'akkada in Ramadan. And this is he says here walahu shartan, and it has two conditions. The first of which is, he says here, an-niyyah. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. So the difference between someone who went into a masjid just so they could go to the masjid, they could go to the bathroom at the back of the masjid in the bathroom. That's one person. Is he getting niyyah for being in the masjid? Not necessarily. Or is he getting a reward for that? No, because he didn't have the niyyah. But as for the person who came into the masjid with the intention of i'tikaf, then he's going to be getting rewards for this. And also say somebody's they're learning the deen in the masjid, and this is even more hopeful that they're going to get double rewards for their i'tikaf if they intend i'tikaf while they're studying in the masjid, as well as the reward for studying. And so that's the intention, and also remaining in the masjid, and this can be any time of the year. And that remaining in the masjid, anything that's considered remaining, and whether it's 30 seconds, it's a minute, and maybe it's just until whenever the salah comes, until the end of the salah. After the end of the salah, I'm going to be here for a few extra minutes. Whatever it is, that amount, and of course the reward differs depending on how much somebody does. And the best of it, like the least kamal, like the least amount that would be accomplishing the full act, is a full day. But if somebody were to, like, a full day with its night, but if somebody were to do it any time for even a small amount of period, it would be counted as i'tikaf. He says, ولا يخرج من الاعتكاف المنظور إلا لحاجة الإنسان. Now he says the person who is vowed to do i'tikaf cannot exit the masjid except for something that is a human need, أو عذر, or valid excuse, من حيض أو مرض, from such as menstruation or being sick, لا يمكن المقام معه, that to an extent that one can't remain in the masjid in that condition. So these are this is the obligation for the person who makes an obligation. And of course we'll talk about nadhr towards the end of this book. And nadhr is that somebody obligates upon themselves to do something that is an act of worship. And in this case, if they obligate on themselves to do an act of worship that isn't already obliged for them to do, then it becomes obligatory. And they have to do this. So if they say, I'm going to make i'tikaf, then when they say I'm going to make i'tikaf, they say the last 10 nights of Ramadan I'm going to do i'tikaf, then they must stay in the masjid the whole time, unless they made a condition that they could leave. But if they just left it as the last 10 nights, then they have to stay in the masjid the whole time, except for something that's a human need. A human need is such as using the restroom. Of course, you're not allowed to go to the bathroom in the masjid. The masjid is not a place for using the restroom. And if you have a bathroom inside the masjid, it's not inside the masjid. It's connected to the masjid. It doesn't take the ruling of the masjid. And so, but you can go to your house to go to the bathroom. You don't have to go to the bathroom in the masjid's bathroom. A lot of times it's not necessarily the nicest. You can go to your own house, you can walk to your house, take all the time you need, not extra time, but all the time you need to get to your house, use the restroom, come straight back. Alright, there's no problem with that. Or also another human need would be eating. You know, of course, someone needs to make, say if it's during Ramadan, then they need to make iftar. Or if it's not iftar, maybe they just need to eat lunch. They can go back to their house and get their food, make lunch, whatever, and then go back to the masjid after they're finished eating. And that's a human need. Or he says, or a valid excuse, such as back in the day, the mu'adhin, he would have to leave the masjid so he could go up onto the minaret to then give adhan. So he's technically stepping outside the masjid to go up to that. And so that's a valid excuse. Alright, and he says,
Shaykh,
yeah.
There is a hadith in which Prophet Muhammad traveled with her wife and dropped her at his family house. And when he was in the i'tikaf, and when some people were seeing him, then the Prophet Muhammad came to the people and told them that this is my wife, while he was in the state of i'tikaf.
And so this you could see this as one, was it mandura or was it not mandura? And this is a part of the other issue. If it was mandura, then we could say that this is like if the Prophet ﷺ, he made it obligatory upon himself, or he stopped it to pause it to go out. But this could be possibly seen as a need, as if there's a need for someone to take care of someone can't do anything else for this. And this could possibly be seen. I'd have to look and see about the ruling of like taking one's family back and forth, if this would work for the i'tikaf that's mandura. But if this was in the middle of i'tikaf, then in this case, depending on whether it's mandura or not, which we don't have evidence that this was mandura, so we wouldn't necessarily be able to say that just walking people back and forth to home or to someone else's home would count as pausing the i'tikaf or not. Allahu alam. I have to look into that. But they do need to remain in the masjid for the i'tikaf to be there. Alright. It says وَيَبْطُلُ and it would be invalidated bil-wat, by intercourse. Intercourse would invalidate it, and also like it is ejaculation by means of touching. The same meaning that was before of that which is haram or break the fast. That would also break it would break the i'tikaf. If somebody, say they're in the masjid and all of a sudden they have a wet dream and they wake up like this, they're junub, they can't stay in the masjid, they have to go out, and this is the udhr. There's an udhr for them, they have to leave, they have to go make a shower, and then they can come back. They have to make a ghusl. Alright, and so this is the basics of what he talks about for fasting and also at i'tikaf. Are there any questions over any of this before we call it for today? Alright, to close off, inshallah, I'm gonna talk about some of the modern day issues that come about and what would break the fast and what wouldn't break the fast. And let's see here. There it is. So these are some of the things that would break the fast according to the madhab and in the stronger view that I mentioned. Using an inhaler would break the fast. So this is of the things that would break the fast. Because this is entering something into the body that goes into like the actual throat, that passageway, and it's an actual substance. So the inhaler would break the fast. Also cigarettes, they break the fast. Cigarettes also break the fast. The next thing that would break the fast, hookah, pills would break the fast, of course. And regardless of what someone needs it or not, it's still going to break the fast. The enema would break the fast according to a lot of the views in the madhab, because this goes all the way up into the body cavity that's on the backside. This would break the fast, the fast according to the mu'tamid of the madhab. Anything entering the number 1 or number 2 pathway from that would break the fast. Colonoscopy breaks the fast. Anything in the nose and mouth that goes down the trachea. So say someone was going to have some type of a hose put into their mouth, like a feeding tube or something. Just the tube itself would break it. The catheter would break the fast. Swallowing phlegm breaks the fast. Swallowing phlegm, and because this is something that came out, and like phlegm, we'd say if it came into your mouth and it was actually to a point where you could spit it out, you didn't spit it out, but rather you just took it right back in and you swallowed it, then it was something that was outside of this and it went back down. And it's not like spit. Spit is forgiven. But phlegm is something that's a specific object. And on one of the views in the madhab, it breaks it. There's a strong view in the madhab that it doesn't break. This is a view that I personally hold, but I try to accommodate and adhere to the other view out of precaution. Like swallowing phlegm. And also if phlegm comes up in your nose and then you were to swallow it intentionally with the ability to get rid of it. This is the key point. If you weren't able to get rid of it and it slipped down without you thinking, it doesn't break your fast on any of the views. But it's with you having the ability to do it and you intentionally swallow the phlegm with the ability to get rid of it, then at this point it would break the fast according to the mu'tamid in the madhab. Although there is a strong view in the madhab that it wouldn't. Also, tasting. This will not break the fast if someone wants to taste food, but they just need to make sure that nothing goes back down into their mouth, that they rinse out their mouth afterwards so that they're not swallowing anything from it, even little tiny pieces. Smelling scents does not break the fast because it's not an actual object that's coming in. Yes, you're smelling something, but it's not an actual object. Blood donating doesn't break the fast. Blood testing doesn't break the fast. Cupping does not break the fast, although it's makruh, to leave the difference of opinion. It's like sunnah to leave it off. Skin ointment or creams, this does not break the fast because it's being absorbed into the skin. And this being absorbed into the skin, even though it might give you a benefit, say a nicotine patch. Somebody's trying to leave off smoking while they're in Ramadan. They put on a nicotine patch. Is this okay? Yes, it's okay. They're that nicotine that goes into their body from the patch, this is not something that is going to break the fast because it's not going in from a orifice. All right. Eardrops, upon a strong view, it doesn't break the fast. Acupuncture, needling doesn't break the fast. Anesthesia, as long as it's not all day, if the person was down throughout the day, like they were already under, and then the fast came in, they had the intention to fast the night before, and then they came up, as long as they were awake sometime within the day, then it would not break the fast. Gum breaks the fast if there is anything mixed in with it. And so, like if somebody has a piece of gum and they're chewing on the gum, there's little bits of sugar most of the time that's getting mixed in with their saliva and then they're swallowing this, it broke the fast. If it was like what they'll call al-Fiqh, which is like a type of gum that there's nothing in it whatsoever. It's just that kind of rubbery material that they're chewing on. But it doesn't actually add anything to it. At this time, it wouldn't break the fast. In under tongue pills or strips, it's like a tongue strip. If you were to put it under the tongue, it gets absorbed into what's under the tongue. This does not break the fast. Like you should try to make sure, like if you were to use one of these tongue strips, you would just make sure that you don't swallow the saliva. But if you were to put it under your tongue, leave it there, and it dissolves into the mouth, this does not break the fast because you're not swallowing it. It's actually getting dissolved into the skin. It's like putting a skin cream. It does not break the fast. Swimming is haram. Swimming is haram. Any water that comes in breaks the fast, regardless of what the need was for it. You say you're saving somebody. At this point, if you're saving somebody or some animal or whatever, and you need to go and swim, okay, at this point, because of the need of saving somebody, then you can swim, but it breaks the fast. And you need to make up the day, and also you would need to make a fidya for it as well, which is a mud for that day. Because it's similar to the breastfeeding woman that didn't fear for herself, but she feared for someone else, and so she broke the fast for the other person's sake. This is the same thing. All right. Toothpaste, as long as it's not swallowed, it doesn't break the fast. That's allowed. Just make sure you don't swallow any of it. Food bits and teeth, they break the fast if it's swallowed purposefully. If it's unintentionally, you didn't realize that there are food bits that you were swallowing, doesn't break the fast. So these are some of the things that do and don't break the fast. Lastly, last thing just to finish out everything else. If somebody they use the pill as birth control and whatnot, that's for like a girl, and she wants to ensure that she doesn't have menses during Ramadan, so she keeps taking the pill so it doesn't make her go into her period. By coming off of it, of course, they can kind of control their period with it. So if she wanted to keep doing this, as long as there's no harm that's going to come from this, that she doesn't fear any harm, then at this point, there's no problem with her doing this. Does she need to do it? No, she doesn't need to do it. Like this is normal for her. She could stay on it normally and just make it up later. But if she wanted to do this, this is allowed for her. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Any questions? Subhanallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Go ahead. Wa alaikum salam.
Sheikh, there is a very big myth in the Pakistan that if a person show affection to her wife during wudu, like grabbing her hand and kissing on her, you know what we should say, lap, the upper part of the head. Forget what it is called. So they say that it invalidates the fasting.
No, it's haram, but it doesn't invalidate the fasting. Like as long as there's no intercourse and there's no ejaculation that happened, it's haram to kiss for the person who has desires aroused by this, such as kissing or touching in a way that arouses the person. This is haram, but it doesn't invalidate the fast.
Sheikh, there is a difference between sexual desire or showing affection, or they fall into same category?
If it doesn't if it's not going to arouse any desire and it's just showing affection, then it's not haram. It'd be makruh to kiss if it doesn't raise any desires. I don't know who that person is, but let's assume that there's no aroused desires whatsoever. It doesn't move any of their desires. Then at this point, it would be makruh for them to kiss. And if it does arouse the desires, then it'd be haram. Yeah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.